The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello and welcome to Esoteric Truth Radio here on freedomslips.com, and I am so happy that you are here. So let's cover a couple of things before we get on with the show. And one is something that's extremely important for the listeners as much as the hosts, and that is the archives. You can go to freedomslips.com and press on the archives button, and you'll have full access for only $4.95 per month to all of the fantastic people that take their time to come out here and give you guys quality shows. So be sure to go to freedomslips.com and press the archive button and sign up. So let's get on with the show. I have a guest tonight, and he is a worldwide known. If you visit his YouTube channel, you can see information, tons of it as a matter of fact, where he gives detailed explanations of the reptilian presence on our planet, with tons of videos and just as many papers written on some of the best internet forums on conspiracy-related topics, like Disclosed TV, where he stands out of the crowd with his dancing reptilian avatar. And I'm very thankful that he has taken time from writing his book and making his very detailed videos with his first ever radio interview. As many of you know, I have not had a show like this before, but I will tell you what is very similar with this guest and with my altogether theme as far as research. And that is, be on top of your game. No matter your content, no matter if others agree, you have to be at the top of your game when you share your opinions. In order for us to be able to hold a conversation and learn from one another, it takes those who know what they stand up for, just as those in power know theirs. So, please welcome Kinningan to Esoteric Truth Radio. Hello.
Okay. Hello?
Hi.
All right. Hello.
All right, I can hear
Thanks
you.
for the introduction. I can hear you.
Okay, good. All right, so I have to say that there are not many people that stay on the subject for very long. Sometimes people are ridiculed, misunderstood, and other things that the internet is very well known for when facing someone who thinks and sees things differently. So what led you into this type of research?
In 2009, that was the first time that I ever seen the work from Zecharia Sitchin. Many people are probably familiar with him already. He brought out the whole Anunnaki conspiracy from ancient Sumeria. And that was the first time that I got exposed to David Icke and other researchers such as Stuart Swerdlow. And I just jumped into all the research, absorbed everything I could, but I noticed there was inconsistencies from person to person as far as what they were saying is what the reptilians actually were. I noticed that in ancient Sumeria, they were depicted as having eagle heads. David Icke was saying that they were scaled lizards. And then Stuart Swerdlow said that he was exposed to them during his experiences with MK Ultra, which he was a part of. So then I started to change my research. After watching all the David Icke videos and all the stuff from Zecharia Sitchin, I realized that if I really wanted to learn about reptilians, I had to really start studying the occult, because there was such a huge serpent symbolism in the occult itself. Dragons, serpents, snakes, they're in every occult text that you can get your hand on. And the more that I started to research this, the more I started to realize that there was something being covered up on this planet, something thousands of years, as far as back in Egypt to the Temple of Karnak, where there's depictions of reptilian humanoids on the reliefs and the walls in there, all the way back to Sumeria. But then in the modern conspiracy was kind of laughed at by a lot of people. However, every kid on the planet knows what a dragon is. It's a mythical creature, but as soon as you mentioned the word reptilian, people kind of cringed a little bit. It was okay to talk about alien greys. A lot of people talk about them. It's still a taboo subject, but it doesn't bring in the kind of criticism that the reptilians do. So that's really what started to pique my interest in wanting to research the subject. Then, as I found more truth to it, I started putting more and more effort into researching it. And now, pretty much, I'm doing this full time with running my YouTube channel, writing a book now, and slowly releasing a series of lecture videos on my YouTube channel explaining different elements of the reptilian conspiracy. The only thing that I don't agree with is what they actually look like. And I don't believe that they are 1,200-pound scaled reptiles. I believe we're dealing more with a creature that's more parasitic than apex predator. And I believe that they're more avian looking. And to even make my conspiracy a little more complex, I believe we're dealing with two different species of reptilians on Earth. One that's native to the Earth that evolved from dinosaurs, and one that came here from the Alpha Draco star system, which is where the word Draco or dragon comes from. And they are the ones that are otherwise known as the Illuminati or the Brotherhood of Saturn. And they do not look anything like the ones that evolved from the dinosaurs. Now, the ones that evolved from the dinosaurs are commonly known as saurians, and they were theorized to live on the ancient continent of Lemuria in the time that Atlantis was around. And I believe that they are the ones that fled to the underground when Atlantis was destroyed, and that the Alpha Draco took over this planet, cloned us from our Atlantean ancestors into the smaller humans we are today. I believe that the giant elongated skulls that are found and the giants talked about in history, I believe they were the Atlanteans. And I also believe that they may have coexisted with the dinosaurs and this other serpent race known as the Saurons. And so that's pretty much where I stand on the reptilians themselves. I believe that there's one, um, I believe that they first came on the Earth when Atlantis was destroyed, maybe roughly around 36,000 to 50,000 years ago, around the time when the Great Pyramid was built also. And like Stuart Swerdlow says, I believe that the Alpha Draconians hurled the ice comet known as Venus at the Earth, and that's what caused the destruction of the dinosaurs. He states that Venus was not an original planet in our solar system. Now, if you know about the planet Venus, it has all the characteristics of an ice comet. It spins in a reverse rotation also. And he suggests when it came into our solar system, it's what put Uranus on a tilted axis. It pulled the atmosphere off Mars. It hit our planet, breaking it in half, creating the asteroid belt, and settled into place right next to Mercury and where it sits now. And it also spins in a reverse orbit than all the other planets do. Um, Venus is also in the occult known as Lucifer. Lucifer is not an actual deity. It is the planet Venus, the light bearer. And the planet Venus also forms a reverse pentagram in the night sky, which is also why it's symbolized by the pentagram in the occult. So the more I started researching this, all the pieces of the puzzle started to fit together with that theory. So, and as far as modern research, yes, I do put videos of reptilian shapeshifters I find on my YouTube channel. One of the best ones I have on there is the Yusef SF, shapeshift, in which at one point in the video, when his hologram fails, you can completely see through his body. Then his head comes back, it starts to form two reptilian eyes, and that is probably one of the better shapeshifts that I have on my YouTube channel. It was one of the first videos I made also. And since then, I've been writing a lot of research articles about it, forum threads, and making videos.
Yeah, that
I
was okay. Now, I do want to mention outside of people not really understanding that Ike is not just the only person who's brought this up, but that when you're discussing certain things, I need you to kind of explain, even to me and to the listeners,
Hmm.
avian looking. Could you be more specific?
Okay, avian looking. They're probably winged serpents. They're bipedal, and they look more typically. When I started to put the pieces of this puzzle together, I started looking at cathedrals, like the Cathedral Notre Dame in France. Outside this cathedral, it's a Catholic cathedral, but you have these very, very grotesque looking gargoyle statues. And the gargoyles are all avian looking, and they have very, very bird like faces. Demons in Christian mythology are always depicted as being avian. Um, and around the Vatican itself, there's a lot of reptilian statues in the Vatican, which, and none of them look like lizards. They're all winged, they're all avian looking. And that's where I start to actually think that these creatures probably look more parasitic. For anyone that's ever seen the movie, I base a lot of what they look like off of, if you can imagine the Skeksis from the Dark Crystal movie. I believe that Jim Henson was pretty much on point with depicting what reptilians look like. And I believe that's why that movie was never made. And he wanted to make a part two of that movie, but he died before he was able to do that. And he died at a very early age, too. I believe he was only in his 40s. Somebody did not want him to make another sequel to that movie. And it's amazing, too, that with all the remakes Hollywood does nowadays, they won't touch a remake of that movie either. Even though, Steve, I believe Jim Henson put 10 years into making that movie. And he redesigned the Skeksis a couple times. The original ones that he designed for the movie were a lot more grotesque looking. Then he settled on a more bird-like face for them. So I think that he was trying to tell something in his movies. A lot like Stanley Kubrick has been known, and he was theorized to maybe depict that he shot the moon landing in the Shining movie.
Right.
I think that Henson was also trying to tell a story also.
Well, I know because I've seen your stuff, and I've actually known about you for quite a few years, and I noticed that the the discussion can stay on even topic concerning reptilians, but as long as you stay focused on a reptile shapeshifting humanoid and it has to look this way, you're one of the very few, if not the only one, that says it has a bird like feature outside of what our minds would normally depict as far as what they're supposed to be. So that's why I wanted you to definitely get into that because I did see the video with the dark crystal and the way that he built them, and it was so weird. You don't see any. I mean, millions of monster movies. You don't see any that look like um, the puppets, or is it puppets that he makes? Yeah, the just their whole build and what dark crystal is about. I'm into synchro mysticism, and I think that movies are depicting stories of the past or things that are to come. So they every single one of them tells a story. So the fact that they didn't remake it or having an avian look or a bird-like look or even a gargoyle um, kind of connection is kind of unheard of, and I think that that's really important to get out of that regular framework of where everybody thinks you say reptilian shapeshift. This is everybody in your mind. Boom, subconscious. You have a set mind of what you're supposed to be looking for, but you go outside of that. So how far back outside of when there was no YouTube, no computers or anything like that, where is the where would the story even outside of Sitchin discuss bird like? You know what I mean? Where it would have been
Hmm.
more of a bird like outside of the Ike and Credo Mutuan, all of those, the way that they say they look. In your research, where was most of that shown? Like, is there a particular place on the planet where that was depicted more?
In a lot of the occult texts that I read a lot of the occult texts to learn about it because they definitely rule it. And in all the occult texts that I read, there's always avian-looking serpents and dragons in these texts, and they're all throughout occult texts. And the bird the avian symbol itself, take the eagle, for example. That's our national symbol for the United States. But what's also interesting is the eagle was also the symbol of Imperial Rome, and it was also used by the Nazis. So you need to ask yourself, why is Rome, the United States, and the Nazis all using the eagle symbol? If it's not the eagle, it's usually the phoenix, or like in Saudi Arabia, their national bird is the falcon. And these are all bird symbols. The Moloch statue at Bohemian Grove is a bird. Um, Horus, the ancient Egyptian god, was a bird. All the ancient Sumerian depictions of reptilians, they all have eagle heads on the statue reliefs. They're not showing typical what people think of when they think of like a reptilian, like a scaled lizard. So
Right. So we focus more or less on the face, but not on the wings or the other, like we're told, just look at this and this is going to be what's similar to all the other things. We don't look
mhm,
at the body shape or the body height or whether it has wings or it's more of a bird as opposed to it actually being closer to a serpent or a snake.
mhm. Now, birds and reptiles have a lot in common, and even with dinosaurs, they're finding out today that a lot of dinosaurs were actually feathered, and they didn't have scales. Even the raptor might have had feathers. So even the dinosaurs that you see in Jurassic Park are not anatomically correct. There's been a lot of paleontologists that have found that a lot of the dinosaurs were more bird-like than they were reptile-like. So it's not that hard to imagine, you know, birds and reptiles having a lot in common that way.
Right. In some of your videos, you discuss not just them in particular or how they're going to be found, because I definitely want to cover technical glitches and stuff in the second hour. But you also discuss the kind of awakening that would happen, or the kinds of things that are being used in places like churches, or the resemblance with colors and all that other stuff. So could you kind of elaborate on that?
I think that was with my Han Purple video.
Yes.
Han Purple, that is the video where I actually explained how reptilians could shapeshift, come from the fourth dimension into the third dimension. Now, Han Purple is a pigment that was discovered on the terracotta warriors in China. It's a pigment that's made from barium copper silicate. And unlike Tyrian purple, which is a garment dye made from sea snails, a pigment is an actual chemical makeup of the you only get Han purple by mixing it this way. That's what a pigment is. And what they had found was with this pigment is when the temperature on the pigment was dropped and electromagnetical field was applied, it broke down a dimension entirely and can make things go from two-dimensional to three-dimensional. I mean, three-dimensional to two-dimensional. It's quite like complicated to explain. I explain all the science behind it in my video,
Right. Would you? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
but
cut you off, but would this be associated with something like alchemy? Is that possible?
yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Oh,
In the occult, purple is the color for magic, and that's I theorized that they could be using Han purple in the fourth dimension, applying an acute electromagnetic field with liquid mercury, and that's how they could bring themselves down to the third dimension and appear as human by using holographic technology. Basically, by doing that, they're taking matter, turning it into light, and then back into matter, and that it's basically splitting atoms and rearranging them. Um, yeah, as you know, the human body, it's made up of trillions, even more than that, of atoms and cells. That everything is every material item that we look at. But these atoms and cells, they stay connected somehow. Um, Not really by like magnetism, but something tells the cells to stay together. So if you were able to stop time, you could rearrange these cells using human DNA, and that's how I believe this shapeshift works. Is they're actually rearranging matter into a hologram. And the fourth dimension is time. So if you can control time, you could probably perform this shapeshift with the Han Purple using human DNA as kind of a map to you have the humanoid genome, and then every DNA strand gives you every individual human. So you would just need the DNA code. Then you can put that DNA code into a holographic, living, breathing hologram that appears human. So that's how I believe it's actually done. It's not a biological shapeshift like what octopus do. I believe this is something more with interdimensional physics, a technology they're not obviously going to let us be exposed to. So, this is something that I have to like kind of think of myself, but it's not anything that I can really verify with any physicist or anything like that because no one's going to even admit that
Oh no.
this could be done.
No, they never would.
But if I would say the best way to explain it would be if you remember the old Star Trek shows when they used to be teleported, they would sit on the teleporter, their atoms would be broken up, and then they would be put on a planet, then they'd form themselves back together. Same kind of concept like what they did in the Star Trek shows with beaming people up onto the ship. That was basically taking a human, turning their form into light, and then back into matter when they were on the ship back on the transformer. And that's basically what I believe they're doing in real life, something along those lines, where they're actually able to do that. But I do believe that they are fourth dimensional creatures. That I do believe.
Okay.
And so,
Okay, so
I know it's a little tough to
no, no, no.
explain
Actually, you're explaining it
without.
very well. I like the set of examples and things like that because I know that unless um, unless we kind of say it more or less in layman's terms, but it is to be understood that it is a possibility, and that we spend a hell of a lot of time just trying to dismiss things as opposed to try to look at it in a different way. So if we had some at least older way, and that's why I associated it with alchemy, because there's a ton of people. I mean, the occult is running rampant. There's none of that stuff is being denied anymore, or at least not as much as it used to. So that's a good thing. But then this opens up an entirely new perspective to say, well, this is actually how they're doing it. I know I wanted to wait for the second hour to discuss the glitches, but before there was everything else, um, is there some way that outside of caves or on walls in certain areas, or uh, even the complete disagreement that comes from researchers of reptilians, period, um, how is it that you can tell the difference between a glitch and a non-glitch? Because I go through it. I've seen videos. Some of them are outrageous, but then there's some of them that I'm like, I really need to look at that one again. So where is it that you can distinguish between a regular glitch and then or a hoax, right? And then outside
Mhm.
of that and say, okay, I really see something. There's something there.
A lot of times when with the legit reptilian video, it'll only be the errors happening to the actual person, and nothing else around the video will be affected. No other people in the video, just the person. It's sometimes their face, and there's a lot of videos on my channel where people's hands actually start turning into claws. And like I was talking to you earlier, and I was saying these news studios use very expensive cameras when they're shooting these news shows. These aren't cheap cameras that they use. These are production quality cameras. So I find it hard to believe it's some kind of camera glitch. They use $50,000 cameras to shoot the news with. So, and like I said, I believe some of these sometimes I believe they're only picked up by camera also. And sometimes it may not be stuff that we can see with the naked eye. Like I was telling you earlier how sometimes ghosts will appear in pictures after people develop the film, but they're not seen in the room when they're actually taking the picture. So I believe the same thing happens with cameras sometimes, that they're able to pick up glitches. Some of these glitches that I have on my channel happen in under a second. So it'd be very difficult to even see and pick it up. I have one, I believe it was 0.29 seconds, one claw that I found. So it was like one third of a second where the glitch actually happened. So they're pretty tough to pick up sometimes. The use of S that formed on my channel is a lot better. That one, his head completely turns into a reptilian. A lot of people have accused the video of being a fake, but no one's proven that it is, not real. And I've had that video up there for 5 years. It hasn't really been debunked yet with any real debunking. People just saying it's not real, but that's not debunking. But that's probably one of the better ones I have.
Yeah, I love that
Uh,
you just said that. Saying that it's not real is not actually debunking, or just repeatedly saying it's fake is not the same thing as debunking. It's just the easiest way to derail a particular subject, which a lot of people have a habit of doing. But when I mean, the videos that I've seen that you had, like the breakdown, I would never have the patience. First of all, I would never have any type of patience to do that, to sit there and try to find something so small. But there's a huge, I want to say not an imbalance. It used to be an imbalance where people didn't believe that you could see an orb or a ghost in a photo or anything like that. And that's becoming more and more mainstream, the better quality cameras that we get. Uh, so it shouldn't be that hard to understand that these studios absolutely are not using a camera phone for the news, especially for live news, where you pick up most of this would be in live, as opposed to where they could edit, right?
hmm Yeah. In movies and TV shows, they're going to be able to edit out any errors or anomalies or anything like that. But on live TV, it's a little harder, and that's where a lot of these are. That's why a lot of people make jokes about, oh, it's always newscasters that are reptilians, but it's because they're usually on live TV, so it's a lot easier to catch them. On a movie set or a TV show, you're going to be able to edit out anomalies like that. So,
Yeah, I thought it was weird as well when all of a sudden everybody was having like these wardrobe malfunctions and they needed to take the that extra minute, you know? So things
hmm
aren't always going to be as live with these giant functions. Where let's say you had a live audience at the Super Bowl, it's no
hmm
longer real time live anymore. So imagine if they use the real time live and you see a bunch of glitches everywhere. They can control that now because they have that 1 minute or 2 minutes, um, where they hold that back just in case there's some kind of a malfunction that they need edited or they don't want live. So I think that that's how it made it a little bit easier, and now people have to actually go and take the time the way that you do to look at these things one on one. The mistakes, they're finding ways to cover up those mistakes if they just happen, to happen.
hmm
Okay, sorry, that was on my end.
it's all right. I can hear you
Oh,
now.
okay. Okay. Um, so let's see. Okay, now can we go a little bit back to again where is there any written history? Did Sitchin have anything? Is there anybody who had it the closest that has been out there and been vocal? Because no matter how many times people say Sitchin was the original, it's not like this was just found or nobody talked about it before. Who would have been the closest that you think in as many years you've been researching that's been the closest to say this person was pretty much as close to being on point as anybody else?
Well, before stitching, where I got my screen name from, Kinningan, that is a word that reptilians cannot say. It's supposed to force them shape shift back into human form. And I got that from Dr. Maurice DeReal's translation of the Emerald Tablets of Thought, which he wrote in 1934. And he first explained these reptilians being infiltrated into Atlantis at that time. They were able to assume human form. They were killing a lot of the kings and priest class of Atlantis, taking their form, infiltrating Atlantis, but then they were discovered by the Atlanteans, who formed a word that they would make every leader say, so they knew that they weren't being ruled by reptilians. And that's when I believe that the Alpha Draco retaliated and hurled the ice comet Venus at Earth, destroying Atlantis. Then, after they did that, I believe that they may have made us, cloned us at that time. And basically, from then, they've been ruling the earth since then. They've changed our history. They've now, like, you take like a word like Atlantis. What's pretty strange about it, it's supposed to be a mythical country that existed, but everyone knows the word Atlantis. It's kind of like it resonates in everybody's soul, like it was a real place at one time. The same thing with Lumeria also, and it's the same thing with the serpents and dragons. Like I said, every child on just about every child knows what a dragon is, but it's a mythical creature. So I believe that that's something that's just embedded into our history that people already are aware of. So I believe what they're doing now is rolling over us, but they're not doing it for gold. I think that they can get gold other ways. Besides feeding off the actual negative energy they create on Earth with wars and racism and all the divide between us, I believe they also keep us back from ever being a threat to their civilization. And maybe that's why they attacked Atlantis in the first place, so nobody would take them out, knowing how evil they were, that they would just take initiative and not let any civilization come to a point where they could actually be a threat to the Alpha Draconians. So that's why I believe they're more of a parasitic race than anything. And that's not something that an apex predator would do. If reptilians were 1,200-pound scale lizards, I believe it. If they invaded Atlantis, they would have took them on in conventional combat, not shape shifting and deceptive means and stuff like that, which obviously means that they weren't as strong as our human ancestors, or maybe even as strong as us. So that's why I don't see them as being an apex predator. Um, on top of that, all the means that they're using to rule with the occult and all the secrecy around the occult and all that and the blood oaths, that's not something. That's more something that like a cowardly kind of parasitic race would use as a means to control. Not, I think the Illuminati are a lot weaker than people make them out to be. I don't really think in real life they would be a threat, but they've figured out how to use humans against humans, and they let us do all the fighting and killing each other. They're just sitting behind the scenes orchestrating it all. And they're using the millions of people in their secret societies as kind of a unconventional weapon that way also. They control the politicians, they control your healthcare, your educational system, your TV, your media, everything you name. It all goes up the pyramid, and it's all ruled from the top by them. I don't think there's any doubting that for anyone that's in the conspiracy realm at all. Whether you believe in the reptilians or not, you have to admit that someone's pulling the strings behind all this, and it's not human. It's very unhuman to begin with, all the behavior. So I guess, yeah, I guess that would be the best way to explain it.
Okay, so all right. So it comes along to a place where they would have eventually had to find a way. Now, a lot of people that research this and don't take it too, they won't, run with it too much. But the consensus is usually that they have any, not just an emotional thing with us, but they can control our emotions. And the reason why we would have this massive amount of fear or this whole controlling aspect in an emotional way or in a mental way is because that's usually how they work. Now, how do you feel about that?
Controlling our emotions, you mean?
Yeah, feeding off of it.
Oh, well, the feeding off the negative emotions, yeah, it would be kind of like a drug to them, I guess, and that's that they thrive off it. Um, so like for example, all the wars that are happening now, I don't see any reason, you know. Think about all the wars that we have going on. We have the war on drugs, the war on terror. It's, I mean, it's like I think my entire life there's always been a war on something going on in this country. And most people, even when I spent 6 years in the army, no one in the army ever wanted to go to war. No one ever wanted to fight. And a lot of it seems very unhuman in nature. And then, we're told that now they're taking the war now and turning it into a religious war, which is exactly what Albert Pike said would happen in that letter, infamous letter he wrote over 100 years ago, where Christianity will rub up against Islam. And that's what we see happening now. It's like they already know what they're going to do. They already knew about the three world wars they were going to. Um, and now, and what else was interesting is the Yusef Essev Shapeshift that I have on my channel. He is an Islamic missionary, and I found that very fascinating because, in my opinion, a reptilian could do more destruction converting people to Islam than he could, being out there with a gun shooting people. Because in the Middle Ages, they would have been converting people to Christianity from paganism. Now that they have so much of the world as Christians, now they're getting more of the world in to be Muslims, and we know how that's working out. It's not working out good at all. We have like we in the past 10 years we have ISIS, Al Qaeda, Daesh, ISIL, whatever. They make all these names up, but it's all like being orchestrated, and it's all like a big game to them as I see it. They use racism to divide us. They're using religion to divide us. And for humans that have been on the earth for thousands of years, it just I think that we should have at least put aside our differences by now and had a more peaceful planet. But it seems like there's something always pulling the strings to make humans go to war with each other, and it's been going on a long time. Seems like, I don't know, once they get so many people on Earth, they need to depopulate it, so they just create the chaos. Well, and that is the logo of the Illuminati: order through chaos. So and so when I studied the Emerald Tablets of Thought and read in there that they did the same thing in Atlantis by infiltrating the kings and the priest class and all that, it's the same thing happening in modern times that it sounds like was happening back then. Except the Atlanteans knew, they were aware of them, they were able to discover them, and it seems like after that they destroyed Atlantis and then just did a better job of hiding themselves over the thousands of years. Now, the only if you really want to learn about reptilians, like I said, if you study the occult, everything in the occult revolves around serpent worship and all this. And we as humans share 98% of our DNA with primates. You won't find anything about primates in occult texts. It's all about dragons and serpents and stuff like that. So I found that pretty interesting as well. Um, so I
Yeah,
think
I didn't even think about that actually. You never see like a monkey god or,
no.
or
You'll
anything
never
like that.
see a primate as a sports team logo either. It's sad, but
Right.
it's like primates have almost like a comic, like a comical or racist context to them sometimes.
Right.
And primates, you'll never see. They're not. You'll never see them on sports teams or in national flags or anything like that. But you know, and I found that very strange. It's like we're supposed to be ashamed of our you know they're supposed to be our ancestors, what we evolved from. So, according to mainstream science, we evolved from primates. So I just found that a little weird, Why? And there's no doubt that there's um, massive serpent worship in the occult, and even Lucifer is iconically depicted as a reptilian, even in reptilian-like, I would say, in texts and stuff like that. So. The demons, like I said, they're kind of grotesque, more like gargoyle looking, but definitely avian. And that's what I believe that these reptilians, the Alpha Draconians, really are. They're more avian looking, probably a lot smaller than what people think they look like. And I do believe that they can be summoned in occult ritual. I believe that's what happens. But what I also believe that happens in these occult rituals is when people summon these things, I believe that they're killed and these things just take their DNA and assume their human form, replacing that person, kind of like the body snatchers idea that's already been out for a while. So they're using a lot of deceptive means. That's why I don't think that they're the apex predators that people think they are. Because if they were 1,200-pound scaled lizards, I don't see any human going against them. If you had some of them on Earth here ruling, they'd rule in an iron fist, and nobody would even, you know, stand up to fight them. I think.
Yeah, I don't see that really happening. Um, Now, I've personally spoke to quite a few people over the years that have said that they've seen this happening or they've seen someone sort of change in front of them. Now, you don't hear
Hmm.
too many stories, or at least there isn't, not that I know of, where this is really discussed out in the open, except like if you're, you're writing books about it or something like that, where like Swerdlow and other people and Ike and stuff like that, um, where it's not really widely discussed about how regular people are actually seeing this in person. And from the people, and this is a personal thing I'm saying, the people that I know that have seen it after they have really engulfed themselves into religion. And I always associated that kind of context, or at least something where you have to have a certain kind of mindset. The first story of Adam and Eve, there's a serpent involved. Like, I think that there's an evolved consciousness concerning reptiles and what we know as now as reptilians, where you can't escape it because it's been told in so many ways, but it's usually this horrific, terrifying, moment where you see the head, you see the face, you see this, and it's movie depictions. Nobody's really looking outside of that. So if you didn't see it in a movie, or if you never really looked into reptilians, let's say some of the listeners never really saw your video or any video, and you're using the word reptilian, their mind subconsciously is going towards a movie or some kind of a onion related story, where we automatically think this has to be the most evil thing on the planet, but we're mistaking. Throughout history, they've been known as, or people that use the snake. There was a picture of one of the Queen Elizabeths, and they were able to do some X-rays of it, and the most recent of the photos, she was holding like a scepter, and when they took back a couple of layers, she was holding a black snake with a coiled tail, and everybody kind of ran with that. But outside of evilness, where do you see how the depiction between a reptilian and the reptile representation is sometimes good in the occult? Is that possible? Is there a
Well,
fight, an internal fight, like a good, evil, same kind of, species in a sense, but one for the good and one for the bad?
well, sadly, in the occult, like especially with Freemason, they call non-Freemason the profane. That's what they call us. Just like with every non-Muslim is called a kafir, a slave. The Freemason refer to us as fools or the profane, and we're not considered to be on the level they are. So actually getting any good information out of a Freemason is pretty impossible. They're on their blood oaths, so anything that I learned about it, I had to. It was whatever I can get my hands on and read that was maybe on the internet or published, but I know that I'll never be able to get one to verify the information I read. And even with all their rituals and all that, like I said, the pentagram is a huge symbol in Freemasonry, and that symbolizes the planet Venus. So if Venus is an alien planet to the solar system and was an ice comet, and if you listen to what Swerdlow said, all the evidence backs it up that, Uranus being on tilted axis, the asteroid belt having hit Earth and creating the asteroid belt, the atmosphere being pulled off Mars. They obviously know something about the planet Venus if they're praising the pentagram so much. Um, but I um, I also I don't know how true it is. I heard an interview about 2 years ago of supposedly a Freemason that he was a Freemason, then he left, and he said that when you make it to the 33rd degree in the Scottish Rite, you get to go to the building in Washington, D.C., and when you walk in that building, there's nothing but serpent symbolism everywhere. There's a sword with a serpent wrapped around it, and he said it's just the serpent symbolism is just so massive and it's so in your face. And I need to ask myself, well, why are they embracing that so much when humans, we're not supposed to have anything with serpents? And if they're not supposedly a Luciferian organization and serpents were typically associated, with demons and hell and stuff like that, then why is there so much symbolism revolving around it? And that's really what made me dig in deeper. Then I looked at all the buildings, that they built in Europe, like I said, Notre Dame and all that, and you see these grotesque gargoyle statues around the buildings, and these are supposed to be religious buildings, and some of these statues are really evil looking. I mean, and so, and then when I started studying the occult more, I started realizing that magic rituals can be used to summon interdimensional species, and then and that's when I kind of decided that the occult was the alien presence here on Earth. That this is how aliens are being communicated with. It's not happening with NASA and the SETI station. All that's just a front. You want to see an alien gray or a reptilian, you're better off, joining an occult lodge and learning how to become a black magician and summon them in rituals. And the archons, which the reptilians control, are the typical alien grays. Anyway, I refer to them as archons. Um, they're written about in the occult. Huge, all the summoning rituals in the occult are to summon archons and stuff like that. Even in Satanism, you have like rituals like the invocation of Lilith. If Lilith, represented in Babylon, she has the serpent feet. She's a reptilian deity. So you have all these rituals and everything revolved around serpents and summoning them, and so that's when I figured out that quite possibly that these reptilians are using black magic and the occult itself as a weapon of control on Earth. And it's kind of an ingenious weapon to use because it doesn't actually involve them having to do anything except getting humans to join these lodges, join their secret societies, and using them kind of as a tool to manipulate the rest of us. That's why all your politicians are Freemasons, all your presidents have been Freemason, and all the pieces just start to fall together that way. I even have doubts that probably most Freemason themselves will never see a reptilian. They're probably not even some of them might not even be aware of them. They're just typical go to the lodge guys that want to get out of the house or whatever, older guys, and maybe it's only a small percent of them that make it up to the upper ranks where they actually start to see rituals, that involve actually seeing these aliens or deities. They probably weed them out through the lodges, people they think they or know that they can trust. Um, you know, Typically your average Freemason meeting, your grandfather or something probably has no idea about them either, or probably would never see one in the lodge. I don't think that all Freemasons are involved in the conspiracy. I believe it's a start for them to weed out people that they want to take up into the higher levels of the occult. And even other researchers in the occult, David Icke had a famous video that was out, Confessions of the Mother Goddess, with a woman that was supposedly involved in satanic rituals with the royal family. And she even described seeing reptilians being summoned in rituals and them eating human flesh and all that stuff. And she said that was only like an elite amount of people that they would handpick from these organizations and bring them into the higher ranks. And that's where you get the pyramid too, the infamous Illuminati pyramid. At the bottom, you have like the lower level people. They don't really know what's going on, and it just goes higher and higher up. And when you make it past a certain point, you actually start to become archon possessed yourself, allowing these deities to attach themselves to your subconscious. That's why when you look at like a lot of you look at older Luciferian people like the Rockefellers and all that, they just have like this look of evil about them, like they're possessed or something. And that's in their human form. And then you would like look at like the Dalai Lama, and he looks happy. And look at pictures of the Pope compared to pictures of the Dalai Lama. You could see a difference immediately between the two. Like one looks like he's possessed and evil, and the other one looks happy and kind of enlightened. And that's how I believe that I believe that's their main weapon that they're using on this planet, because everything that trickles down through these secret societies is where all of our politicians come from, where all of our leaders come from, all your people in high-ranking places of government, and that's just how the control matrix works. And it really makes sense from that point.
Right, because you can't have like a straight on conversation with somebody who's joined a secret society and not have to go through the whole boxing match of what their organization actually stands for. Because they think that because you get in, you pay your dues every month and, you get a bumper sticker or whatever, that it gives you, then you become privy to
Hmm.
certain kinds of information. But if you understand the occult and you understand invocation and you understand oath, if you go into an organization that, let's say, uses occult rituals in order to gain access to people, whether to possess you or to get you to do certain things, that would be the best way to do it. You come in, you make yourself accessible. You have to have some type of an oath, which would be an invocation in a sense, and that's how the whole thing works. So even if you don't face it, or even if you choose to fight it, you're still part of that system. It's like gaining membership, So they get more and more powerful, and people don't know why. I did a show last week about egregores, and people were going nuts about it. They were like, "That doesn't make any sense," and I'm like, we make these things and we give them power by simple speech, by things that we do, and anytime you make a bond. And going to these places and putting yourself out there in a personal sense is a way to make yourself accessible, whether through the subconscious or not. You now give yourself a higher authority because this place told you you had it. It's not that you have it in real life. It's good enough for them or to make you think that you do. So the pyramid begins to grow. The people on the bottom continue to grow as well. They just don't go up. They go out in width, but not in height,
Hmm.
and don't see it.
It's like the military. Anyone could join the army, but only less than 1% of people in the army would ever make it into like the Green Berets or Delta Force, and they handpick those soldiers out of the regular army. So I think it's the same way for the occult with making it up to the higher level mystery schools. You know, anyone can go become a Freemason, but they're only going to handpick out the ones that they think you know they could bring up to the higher levels. And I believe in me, even before you go up to those higher levels, you can't, from what I understand, you can't ask to be a 33-degree Freemason, or they'll deny it to you for the rest of your life. It's only by invite only. So obviously, right there, you have to be invited to make it to the 33rd degree in Freemasonry, and you can't ask for it. And I believe, and some others speculate, that there might even be levels that are over that we don't even know about. That that's the start for the next level of something that most people don't even know exists out there. Even probably other Freemason don't even know exist. I believe that most Masons are fine. They make it up to the 32nd degree. They go to the other side schools. They become Shriners and all that. But they're aware of magic. They're practicing it. They learn occult magic. There's no doubt about that. But I believe that when you get to these elite mystery schools, music's coming on.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Who owns you? If you're not in control, then someone else is. Join me, Ivy West, for Voices on the Wind, Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern in Studio A. I discuss government, health, metaphysics, suppressed science, universal mysteries, little-known incredible facts, alternative energies, and even more than you can imagine. Won't you join us on Revolution Radio Saturdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern for Voices on the Wind with me, Ivy West.
There are lives in the balance, people under fire, children at the cannons.
Because if your head's in the sand, your tail is a target.
You need some more speed records in this day and age. You need coverage.
Coverage? Oh, you mean them little root weevils that crawl around popping off cameras in your face?
Those root weevils write history.
Many of you know that quote by Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. Well, you can, and Event Horizons will give you those truths. So when you're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore from that memorable senior network, you'll know just what to do. We will draw you in and become your news addiction at Event Horizons. Join us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time at freedomslips.com at Revolution Radio. Our world team members are Dennis Fetcho, John Ilias, David Dunger, Hyla Cass, MD, Melanie Bridgton, Jim Mars, Paula Harris, John Trallo, Maria Payan, Christopher Husser, DODDS, Jonathan Orchard, and me, your anchor, Dr. Robin Falco.
If you decide not to volunteer, it will not be held against you in any way.
Sounds dangerous. It is. Very dangerous. Count me in.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.
Listen in on Mondays, 8 Eastern Time on Revolution Radio for Journeys with JP. With a variety of guests, each giving their perspective on their journey into the now. Join me and my guests Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern on Revolution Radio Studio B.
Enjoy your extra big-ass fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another extra big-ass fries?
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please come back when you can afford to make a purchase.
No.
I'm sorry you're having
Come
trouble.
on. My kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener-supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning, how to do everything website, all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we do in life, it goes in eternity.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello and welcome back to Esoteric Truth, and I am your host Trinity. Thank you for being here for our second hour. I have a wonderful guest by the name of Kinningan, and we are discussing the Reptilian conspiracy. It just so happens that Kinningan is in the chat room. Thought I mentioned that, but apparently I did not. But I also have the help of Noreen Helpin, who is wonderful, who, if you have a question for Kinningan, please put it in the chat room and it will be sent to me and I will ask it on the air. So thank you, Noreen. Love you for this. And like I said, let's get this started. We have an hour left and that's not a lot of time. So Kinningan, you here?
Yeah, I'm here. I got caught off by the music last time, but
yeah, no, it's okay.
Yeah,
you can hear yourself on the music, but only for a couple of seconds and then it'll drown you out. So you did fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to cover something. It's a video that I saw on your channel. And I wrote something down. Okay, so I had something to do with the two-finger symbol. Could you elaborate on that?
The dragon sign of the cosmos.
Yes.
That is the index and middle finger, which represents Jupiter and the planet Saturn. The middle finger is planet Saturn. The index finger is Jupiter. And what it was a symbol that I showed on there is actually a demonic curse put upon crowds when you see people doing it. And then I have a whole slideshow where you'll see everyone from like the Pope to movie stars doing it. And these are just some of the occult symbols that they flash in your face every day that most people aren't even aware of. And that is the dragon sign of the cosmos. Now, another interesting sign, which I haven't actually done a video for yet, a lot of people are familiar with the devil horn sign, which is the pinky and the index finger. And a lot of people think that stands for the devil horns. But from what I understand, that actually stands for the mixing of mammalian and reptilian DNA. And when you actually see someone doing the devil horns, that's actually what that is supposed to symbolize. That's something that I learned from another researcher, which I'll probably put the source in my video when I do that. But that's another symbol that you see a lot of. And these are just symbols that are flashed every day by people, and people don't really know the meanings behind them. But yeah, actually, when you give someone a middle finger, that's the planet Saturn. That's where that comes from. So yeah,
wow. I never heard any of those. That's awesome, by the way. I had never heard any of those, and I saw the symbol, and I know it's usually associated with Baphomet, with the as above, so below.
Yes, Baphomet is making the dragon of the cosmos symbol, and you'll actually see George Washington doing it, the same exact pose. There's a George Washington statue where he's posing exactly like Baphomet. And, they founded this country. So it really makes you question, what our forefathers knew. Why is George Washington posing like Baphomet in a statue? That you could find that picture on Google, too. If you just Google George Washington Baphomet, and you'll see that picture. It's pretty crazy. It's like that's another reason why I knew that there was something behind this reptilian stuff, because all this subliminal messages and symbols that they pound us with every single day, you're being bombarded with occult symbols, and people don't even realize it. Even Apple, take the biggest iPhone company maker, the apple is a very evil symbol. That was what the serpent gave Eve in the Garden of Eden, was the apple. And here it's one of our biggest producers of cell phone technology today. So the symbols are everywhere.
Okay, so I wanna ask this. I don't think you and I have discussed it. but it's in reference to another big part of humanity that is associated with reptilians, or, and I'm talking about like in any way you can kind of depict it at this point, because we can put it into 100 different places, but this kind of falls in line with what we discussed in the first hour about how we don't discuss or have a monkey symbol or anything like that, considering 85% of the population is supposed to have some kind of rhesus monkey blood. So, how do you feel about this situation concerning Rh negative bloodline and how that kind of falls into? I don't know if it's forcefully put in
I
there, but do you see
I
any association?
I have to honestly say I don't really know too much about blood or how it affects hybrids and all that. I've never really gotten into it. Um, I don't know if it really affects anything or not. Uh, so I really couldn't answer that with an honest opinion.
Okay.
I've never looked at the blood aspect of the actual. No, I can't say that.
Okay.
I've heard theories about it, but I just never really, you know, understood it, and I don't see how it affects anything. Um, Obviously, when they're shape-shifting into this form, I don't think blood type would really matter. Um, Although some people claim that hybrids are supposed to have different types of blood and all that, but I'm not sure yet. So
Okay.
maybe it's something that in the future I'll look into or something, but I really couldn't answer that. I've never gotten into that aspect of the research.
Right. Well, I mean, the reason why I brought it up anyway was because a lot of the association over the years of me trying to, I think that everybody's information has validity. And if you research it deep enough and you look far back enough, and I've mentioned this on the show, they tell us to keep looking forward, never look behind you. And you don't know if you're making the same mistake twice if people keep telling you to not to look, don't look back. We have to do that because all of this information is there. It's no longer hidden. I mean, the most important stuff, absolutely. Um, but at some point, if enough of us started to find out information uh, the way that you have in your research, and so many other people are now being a lot more open and saying, screw you if you don't want to hear what I have to say, or you just don't like my theory or my idea or even my research, I'm still going to move ahead. But any place that I've ever looked into, and I'm not really, I'm not even 100% sure if Ike bumps into it. I think he does, but it does tie into the whole Lilith situation, the bloodlines, the hybrid, and all that. A lot of people associate it with the reptilian theory. So there's a bunch of people out there who actually believe um, that the reptilian presence is out there, and then those who don't have the rhesus monkey blood are actually somehow the same exact kind of thing. Like the reptilians eventually going to come out and they're going to take over everything. And they have their little minions running around, and you could spot who they are because they're the only different ones as far as, blood type. So that's why I brought it up. But so you're working on, or at least in the beginning processes of working on a book. Um, the kind of ancient information concerning planets and stuff like that, what led you, besides, was it only the Emerald Latoth that covers the the I want to say the beginning origins, at least, of where this whole thing started? Like, is there a the beginning, like in the beginning?
Well, the oldest place that you can go back about reptilians is Babylon. That's where it pretty much all starts. And Babylon, um, there's just so much serpent worship in Babylon and stuff. A lot of there are reptilian demons in Babylon that were actually sculpted too. A lot of people are familiar with the movie The Exorcist and the book. Well, the demon in The Exorcist was a deity named Pazuzu, and there is actually a statue of Pazuzu in ancient Babylon, and he's depicted as being more like gargoyle-like with wings, a small, smaller creature, and he is probably more what I believe reptilians look like. Now, I also believe that there's a type of archon possession that happens that isn't reptilian, but somehow that's when people involved in Satanism or the occult actually have an archon attach themselves to their consciousness, in the realm where conscious thought occurs. And we see a lot of eye anomalies with these people, where they'll start to get massively dilated pupils, and that's one sign of demonic possession. Actually, is large pupils. So I believe that even with demonic possession with the Vatican and the Church, that they're aware of the Archon possession, and I believe a lot of these demons that possess people are Archons. They're the alien greys that are being controlled and They were created by the Reptilians, and they're the typical, 3 to 4 foot alien greys. Now there are a few different species of alien greys in conspiracy. You have the tall whites, which are the taller, lighter. Um, they're the tall, thin alien greys, supposedly the tall whites, who may be working with the reptilians. Then you have the smaller gray aliens known as archons, which are more like soulless and just they're more like biological robots, and those can also be summoned in a cult ritual. Um, and then when people they p- become possessed by these deities. Now, I don't know how many people listening have actually heard of Jay Widener. He's a very famous reptilian and archon researcher. He states that the term selling your soul to Satan actually can be translated out to selling your soul to Sirius, in which in an occult ritual, these selling your soul to Satan to be a part, Hollywood or movie actors or famous musicians, stuff like that, is actually a ritual in which they allow the archon to attach itself to the person's subconscious. And that archon is basically controlling this person. And that's where the term selling your soul to Satan actually comes from. And he does a really good job of explaining that. And it starts to make a lot more sense in that way also, that they're using these demonic forces to possess people. And that's, we've all heard of selling your soul to Satan. And unfortunately, people have to do that to become very rich and powerful, or famous musicians or entertainers and all that. Has nothing to do too much about talent. It's if you're able to go along with the program. And a lot of artists even come out afterwards and say that they sold their souls to the devil, and they'll say it on TV shows, joking around. And I don't think anyone actually takes them serious, but I think there's some real truth behind it.
Right. Okay, well, we have a question from the chat room by the name of Planet. The question is, does Kinningan know who the lizard Pindar is?
Yeah, Pindar. That name actually originates back to the Biblio-Apocalypse website. That's where I first read that. Supposedly Pindar is the leader of the reptilians. He's supposed to be a white winged reptilian, and supposed to be the leader of the Illuminati here on Earth. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard of Pindar before. What is interesting, though, is I do have a video where I think that I figured out the reptilian name of Queen Elizabeth, and I believe her reptilian name is Lilibet, which is rooted from the word Lilith. So I think that one of them is at least called Lilibet, I'll tell you, not Pindar. But yeah, I'm familiar with the Pindar.
Well, thank you for your question, Planet. I appreciate it. Okay, hold on one second. All right, so we covered at least part of that aspect. The one thing I do kind of want to also discuss is the shape shifting process. Now, if we can't see it right away, there had to have been another time where it would have been easier, or are they getting worse at hiding it? Like, I'm not really, you know what I mean? Like, they just suck at it, or is our technology going far too fast? There seems to be so many mistakes that are being made, that they're falling out. Do you see why that could be happening, or anything like that?
Well, it's only in modern times that we have cameras. So for thousands of years, no one would have ever been able to photograph one. They would never been able to take a picture of one or video or anything. So if anyone ever seen one, it would have just been hearsay. There was really no way to document proof of it. And however, I do I do know that people, they did depict them with statues and carvings in ancient times, which is really interesting. If any of you have ever seen the Klaus Donna video, he has an entire video where he shows all these reptilian sculptures that were made by ancient people. These like little statuettes of reptilian humanoids that were carved by ancient people and all that. So they were definitely trying to show something that they may have seen back in that time. I believe that in modern times, it's just getting harder and harder for them to keep a lid on everything. I believe that just too much information is getting out too fast, and I also believe that there is a big disinformation campaign going on with reptilians. And what else is strange that I find is some conspiracy sites out there. I don't know how they call themselves conspiracy sites. I'm not going to name them on here, but you're not even allowed to post threads about reptilians without it even being deleted or thrown in Skunkworks forums or anything like that. So not everyone will even let you talk about it in the conspiracy realm, which I find pretty crazy. You could talk about alien greys all day, but once you mention reptilian, everyone seems to cringe at the idea. Yet we have all this serpent worship all around the planet. You know, kids can talk about dragons, which are mythical creatures, but just not reptilians, and that makes no sense at all.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I had wrote a thread. I won't name the site either, but I had written a thread, and it wasn't about reptilian shapeshifters. It was about the reptilian brain. And the beginning of it, I just put photos of what people that do videos or people that associate reptilians with, and I was just moving along the point where, um, in order for us to be, you know, uh, at least part of it or subconsciously know about it, they use it in this way so that we don't understand we are all part. The oldest part of our brain is reptilian, and it literally it nothing about what we're talking about today, and it got moved to skunkworks. And I was like, how is that possible? It's part of our brain. A doctor could tell you this. That's how scared people get when you bring this type of thing up. Nobody wants to associate it or have any type of thing to do with it. And when you do your research and you look into the things the way that you do, it changes the format. It makes people say, okay, no, I really didn't look into that before, so maybe if I look at it again. It's not about convincing, it's about being aware of a little bit of everything. That's how we move along. You can't just dismiss some things and be totally okay with probing, alien probing. We're cool with that. But you say that there's gargoyles on cathedrals. I remember seeing a video quite a few years ago. That's when people started taking these balloons and putting a camera and letting it go. And this guy did not know where his balloon was going to go, but the stuff that he saw on the cathedrals, this was in Europe, he saw, I mean, it went on for miles. It slowly came down. He got all the photos. He says you can't see them with the naked eye, but they're all on top of the buildings. You could look up all day, but you're not going to see how many sculptures are on the churches and the cathedrals and on the buildings. They're not supposed to be seen by people, but when you enter them, these things are above you at all times. And I thought that that was a huge. It didn't get the kind of attention it should have got. But when you mentioned the gargoyles, what they do, they turned it into a cartoon. I used to love that cartoon. But they turned it into this thing where it's a way to put things in plain sight, hidden in plain sight, but it's right there. It's for everybody to see. So I thought I'd throw that out there because I couldn't believe how many buildings had it. Even I was in awe. And I was like, if he wouldn't have put that balloon, nobody would have ever known. I know the makers of the building and the architects of the buildings know these things are placed there. And we don't ask why. Why would a church have demonic looking gargoyles on top of it?
I even seen a David Icke video where he was in England and he was pointing out all the dragon statues in London. And it was amazing. Like they were everywhere, dragons. And he even said it. He said, why are all these dragon statues here? It's a mythical creature, but they're everywhere. We have them on our banners, on our flags. There's sculptures of them. They're all over the castles. And this is supposedly a mythical creature. But yet people are going to laugh at you when you mention reptilians. But it's okay. You can have dragons all day. That's okay, though. People laugh if you say unicorns or Bigfoot or mermaids, but the dragon's okay. It's accepted. It's like the one mythical creature that you're allowed to embrace. No one's going to bother you for it. just you can't say reptilian, which actually makes no sense at all. And dragon obviously comes from the Alpha Draco star system, which is the Arabic word for the Alpha Draco star system is Thuban, which means the snake. And the word serpent comes from the Latin word serpens, which means a snake with a heightened sense of intelligence. So even in ancient Rome, Latins had words to describe these serpents. Uh, you know, so it's been going on for a long time. The biggest symbol that they used in Rome wasn't the dragon, but they used the double phoenix, which is the eagle symbol or the avian symbol again. But the double phoenix was a symbol of Rome. And you see that same symbol now in Freemasonry. It's on the flag of Russia. And it's, like I said, it's either dragons or avian bird-like creatures or the gargoyles. And they're everywhere. Um,
Right. I saw a meme not too long ago, and it had a picture of a dragon, and it says, we can't really discuss dragons, and out of all the mythical creatures, the dragon is the only one told in stories that we have a way to kill. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't just exist. We have stories on how they were fought. We have stories on how they were found. We have stories about where they live. You know, we don't have stories like that about um, all the other mythical creatures, you know, that are given detailed stories, but not as detailed as the dragon. You know, we know they live in caves. We know that the knight has to go. You know, they're like, why did they take this one thing and run with it the way that they did? You know, you brought up the unicorn. We don't have. I don't know where unicorns live. I know it's a mythical creature, but nobody took that and ran with it. But the dragon has always movies till 2016. Movies every other week are coming out. Um, that have representations of the dragons or how we had to fight them or you know their actual importance. uh, why did we take that so far?
talking about the movies too, another point that I want to bring up. You'll notice too, like in the 70s and 80s, there was a lot of movies that came out with, you were talking about all the creatures are not reptilians, but in the 70s and 80s, there was a whole bunch of movies that came out that showed reptilians. Even the famous TV show V that came out originally in the 80s. You had Enemy Mine, which was a human and a Draco being stuck on a planet together, and he was a reptilian.
I actually watched that. I actually saw it. It's oh my god, what's that guy's name? He's a huge actor too, because I saw the photo and it's his face and a reptilian face, and I was like, what movie is this and how come I've never seen it? um and it was huge, and I was like, okay, why don't we, you know, how come nobody's bringing this up? But it was that they were living together, they were trying to get off of it. It was a whole story. um and it was actually kind of good. I mean, it's
Mhm.
a B movie now, but it was really good. It had a great story, and I thought it was an important one at that.
But now in modern times, they've abandoned the reptilians in movies now. They even tried to revive the V television series, but that was canceled after the first season. And it's just like none of the alien characters you see in movies anymore are reptilian. They're usually pretty goofy looking, but it seems like even they abandoned putting out reptilians in movies anymore. Now, another interesting thing is for a lot of people that have seen the movie They Live. I'll give you an interesting fact about that movie. That movie was based off a short story called 8 o'clock. And in the original story, when the guy put the glasses on, he saw reptilians in the original story. They were lizard people. But when they made the movie They Live, they took the reptilians out and made them into like the funny looking skeleton aliens. So they even changed the story of that. But the original They Live short story, and I have a bookmark for that story too. Maybe I'll give it to you sometime. You can read it. In the original short story, the guy sees lizard aliens when he puts the glasses on.
What's the name of the book again, so they can hear it again?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
Hold
Okay.
on, wait. Let me check my bookmarks here.
Okay.
I had it
I
on.
never heard of that, and now that that's making a huge comeback. That movie, it's in every meme. Every conspiracy theorist knows what it is. They get the gist of it. But I think knowing where it originated from is that's super important. That's a piece of information. They could have ran with that.
I
It's
just
not like the
posted
movie
the
would have
link in your
tanked.
chat. I just put
Awesome.
8 o'clock. They can read it right there. And when you read this story, the original aliens in this story were lizards. You'll see clips down at the bottom. And they changed that in the movies. And I found that very interesting. It seems like around the time that this movie came out and afterwards, they didn't want to put reptilians in movies anymore. And then you had Jurassic Park come out in the 90s, which was like huge reptilian porn for them because they made them big, scary, scaled lizards. And here we're finding out today that raptors actually had feathers and all that. So even the raptors from Jurassic Park are not even correct because the famous paleontologist Jack Horner, he even stated now that they found out that raptors' feathers, they were more bird looking. And it seems that like I said, in modern movies anymore, you'll never see reptilian characters, it seems, or reptilian aliens. Seems like they banded away from it, which I found pretty interesting.
Right, because every other day there's a new Alien movie out, and the actor's name in Enemy Within was Dennis Quaid. I couldn't remember his name for the life of me, but I thought it was weird that an actor that eventually had this huge career, because a lot of people that do movies like that back in the day, I think it was from the 80s or the early 90s, um, they don't really come back from that. So I love it when you could look back and say, oh my god, I can't believe this guy was in this kind of a movie, but then you watch it and it is literally telling you a very particular type of story. But the guy's never out, he's not changing, he's literally a walking talking reptilian in the movie. And they're forced to learn how to like kind of get along in a sense.
Hmm.
um, but I'm so glad you brought that. I was going to actually bring that up, but I couldn't remember the guy's name.
In fact, this story I just posted about the they live thing, it reminds me, I actually have a video planned for this where I wanted to do a video about that, about how they changed the characters in the movies from being lizards to those funny looking aliens. I thought that was pretty interesting that they would change that much of the book.
And
And
for what? It's not like it's more far-fetched to think they were robot aliens. It would have been easier if they would have just made it into reptilians. We probably would have accepted it. It probably would have been more popular back then if they made it into something like that. But to change the entire format, if you understand that you were supposed to see these beings, and now we understand that they were found, their depictions were found everywhere, it changes how you see reptilians, and at least people that are bringing that out into the open. You there?
yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
The
No,
sound
you're
cut
fine.
out for a second, that's all.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. That might have been on my end. Okay, so let me ask, do you think that if outside of the possible glitches, outside, let's say if we took the entire theory of the glitches are not purposeful, could there be a possibility that it is purposeful for another type of reason, maybe to make themselves known a little bit more? Could that be an agenda?
Well, it seems like they're putting more and more of this occult stuff out there every day. Um, Here's one thing that I found interesting. I don't know how many people listening. There was a recent UNICEF commercial that just came out, and in the video, it was a class with school children, and one of the kids inside the classroom was an alien hybrid, and this is from UNICEF, and it was a video about racism, and it was about like this kid was an alien hybrid, but they wanted to make the other kids like him, and I just found that pretty weird because, like I said before, about uh, they use racism as a powerful tool to divide humans. They probably created us all to look different with that intention from the get go. Um, in fact, well, with that UNICEF commercial, there was an alien hybrid there. That commercial's on YouTube also too, I believe. And he's sitting in the classroom, and all the kids are supposed to like this kid because he's different. He was like an alien hybrid. He looked like a mixture between human and an alien gray. And I just found that so weird. Why is UNICEF putting out a video with like this alien hybrid in a classroom, and the other kids are supposed to, not be racist towards them? I just found that really weird too. And I think that they are preparing the world for something, but I don't think it's actually going to be the reptilians disclosing themselves. Um, Maybe introducing some types of alien hybrids to us or something like that. Maybe, but there's no doubt that they want to have a new world order started. And what I don't think a lot of people realize is that new world order is going to be something more or less right out of ancient Babylon, and you do not want that here on Earth. Them having the new world order out in the open would mean that we would go back to like sacrificing children to Moloch, you know, right out in public, like they did. They even did that in the Bible. The Pharisees from Israel were heavily tied in with Babylon. In fact, that's where a lot of their teachings come from. You and so maybe that's why they're slowly letting like pictures of the Bohemian Grove slip out, and I believe that a lot of the information coming out too might be from them also, just trying to. Um, it seems like they are letting people know. I even have a video clip of Obama on The View stating right on The View that humans have a reptilian brain. I made a video about that too. Found it weird that Obama would mention that on The View, telling people that we have, a reptilian brain, but we still have to fight against it and not be racist. And so it seems like they're putting out a lot of the symbols themselves. So you are right about that. It's another way to control a conspiracy. Also, is to put out a lot of this information, get it out in the open too. But that and I believe that it's just too much information. With the internet, I believe that they can't hold a lot of it back either. So I don't know what they're going to do besides maybe just completely shut down the internet and not let us make YouTube videos anymore. But it's becoming too big for them to even put a lid on anymore. And like with your radio show here, the independent media, mainstream media is losing. More and more people are turning off their TVs every day. So a lot of the propaganda and mind control isn't making it through, and a lot of people are starting to wake up. And I think once enough people wake up, then we'll start to find out the truth because I don't think people are falling for their schemes anymore. It's like we have all these people running for president in 2016. I could care less about any one of them, honestly. I mean, I mean, really,
Right.
it's just all a big show to me. I think it doesn't matter who we vote for. It's going to be who they put in office anyway. It's probably going to be a reptilian shapeshifter. Your vote does not matter. Um, I think that's all sham too. Um, but I think more and more people are finding out about it, which means that they're going to have to do what they usually do and maybe start World War III or something to distract people from finding out the truth. It seems like it's pretty much the theme over the past few thousand years is start wars, start chaos, do this. You look at the ancient continents like Australia, Africa, and America. Why did they come here and slaughter all the natives and move Europeans in? Even in South Africa. And when you study all the ancient continents, you find out that all the ancient people talked about serpents on every continent. They knew about serpent gods. The ancient Indians knew about serpents. They did in Africa, like you mentioned, Credo Mutwa. He was a Zulu shaman who talked about reptilians. In Australia, the Aborigines spoke of serpents. So even on continents that had no communication with each other, all the ancient people all spoke of the same serpents in history. So I believe that part of when they invaded, took over the New World, took over Africa, took over Australia, that was all planned too to put us where we are at today, where they could basically rewrite history, wipe out the natives so the natives can't tell their stories anymore. Bring in indoctrination of religion, the church, obviously. And now it seems like everything's getting chaotic again, where people they're banning the church at record levels. Um, we have all these religious wars breaking out, all this racism in America. When I live in Philadelphia. Okay, I live in a mixed neighborhood. There's not as much racism as you might think out there. A lot of this that I see on with this Black Lives Matter and all that, this is all manufactured and engineered because I live in a mixed neighborhood and you don't see racism on the level that they make it out in the mainstream news all the time. A lot of that's just you said that you lived in New York for a while. You've probably seen it up there too.
Most of
Right.
my
It's
life.
so blown out.
Most of my life. So I know.
It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It
hard.
seems like
Yeah, I hear so many people. They're like, oh, but I've seen it. Where? Most people have never even been into the inner cities, but be the first one to talk about racism in it. And I'm like, you don't even know what you're talking about. It doesn't happen like that. This isn't TV. This isn't Law and Order or anything like that. You can't say you base your research or your information on an agenda based on a television show. That's not how it
yeah,
goes.
these are engineered false flags, to get people divided, and that's all they've been doing. And that's another obvious reason why I believe reptilians are behind all this. This is very non-human in nature. Humans don't sit there plotting all day on ways to divide each other and fight and all this racism and wars and all this, and it just it's very non-human. And that's why I definitely believe that there's somebody behind pulling all the strings, and that's what got me curious in researching reptilians because I wanted to find out the truth on what was really going on. I wouldn't have stuck with this research for this long if I didn't believe there was any validity to it. I would have abandoned it a long time ago. But then the more I started to research, the more pieces of the puzzle started to fit together, and the more I started to see an entirely different history of Earth. Um, I started. I never took the occult serious. Then I started looking at that and finding out, what that was about. And I still have a lot of stuff to research, like, a lot more. You asked me about the blood and all that. Maybe that's something I'll look into in the future. But every time, it seems like every year, my own theories are changing too as I find out more and more about different things. Um, but yeah, I guess that's what I would say about that.
Right. Well, if you decide to go into the bloodline stuff, man, just get in contact with me. I've been researching it for quite a few years, and it always kind of took me back to the reptilian thing. So that's why I thought. Now we do have another question, and this is from Planet. The question is, what are the weaknesses of these
Weaknesses.
reptiles?
Love is one of them. The second one is I don't know how many of you have ever heard of it, but there is a material called orgone, which was discovered by Wilhelm Reich. Orgonite is devices. You can look them up online. They sell them on eBay, actually, orgone energy devices. But supposedly these devices, um, they collect and produce prana, which is positive life energy. Now, Wilhelm Reich, when he started developing orgone, all his books were seized by the FDA and burned, and he was thrown in prison. So he was obviously onto something with this. And one of the biggest things that people think about orgonite and why he wasn't allowed to develop it was that it may actually even affect the occult matrix that they're putting over Earth. Uh, with all this bombardment of cell phone signals now, Wi-Fi, all the occult magic that's going on, all the uh, every day there's Luciferians doing rituals that basically condemn us and curse us, to spread their power on this planet. Um, Even if you don't believe in it, they do, and they're doing it. So that might be one of their weaknesses. Um, and I think their biggest weakness is actually being exposed for what they really are. Because if they are the weak kind of parasitic beings I believe they are, they're probably more afraid of us than we are of them. And that's why I believe the perfect scenario is the Wizard of Oz, where when Dorothy finally meets the wizard, it's this little guy sitting in this big machine making himself seem like he's really big. And here the wizard was just this little guy the whole time. I think that movie was telling something else also. I bel
Right. That's
I
a great
actually believe that
analogy, by the
movie
way.
is
It's a
about
great.
initiation into Freemasonry. I believe when Dorothy goes down the yellow brick road with her three friends, I believe that's the 3 degrees of Freemasonry. And meeting the wizard at the end is, that's the big secret. But I believe that movie's telling a different story.
Wow, nice. Thank you so much, Planet. I really appreciate it. Um, okay, so we have about maybe 15 minutes. So If I don't know too much about organite. I know a couple of people that are really into it, so thank you for bringing that up because I've been trying to look into it just recently, as a matter of fact. Um, but as far as what we were discussing with the race issue and the things that we don't do, and how we're actually tribal people, we like being together. Like this has to be the first time in a very long time in human history where we're so separated from one another.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And if there were reptilians out there that have this form of changing, um, then they would want to cause us to be mad at each other about the outside, not the inside. You know what I mean? I would hate you for the color of your skin as opposed to the type of person that you are. That seems like a pretty good agenda to a race that has such a different
Hmm.
outside. You know what I mean? Okay, I'm sorry. I have another question. There you go. Can you post a link to guest webpage of Facebook?
I don't have a Facebook
Gladly.
account.
Okay.
Uh,
No, no, I was gonna just put the
hmm.
your YouTube channel. Yes. Okay, so you can go to YouTube and go under
Yes.
Kinningan, right? Yes. Okay. And your name is spelled out. He's in the chat room, by the way. His name is spelled out there. So if you're not sure about how to spell it so you can find his work, it's in the chat. Uh, you want to spell it again for
Actually, I'm
us
going
so
to
I don't
post
spell
my
it wrong?
YouTube channel on there. Give me 1 second.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate it. So while he's doing that, so I always figured that it can't, the way that you said that we just have all of these wars and we have all of these things, that's
Hmm.
external stuff. You know what I mean? It's stuff to keep us constantly divided. And it doesn't matter if you believe in any kind of disclosure. It doesn't matter if you believe it's going to be like Independence Day or it's going to be, reptilians coming out of tunnels, because I know almost everybody I know knows about Phil Schneider. And I don't know if you, uh, I'm sure you do know about it, but I'm saying if that sounds more like a legit thing, disclosure could come in any form. If they keep spoon feeding us that they're going to be coming from the sky, then believe me, if the news is talking about it, then look somewhere else because that ain't going to be it. Um, they're not here to tell us the truth. They're here to make sure that we're definitely not looking uh, where they don't want us to look, and we don't do that. We've seen 1% of our ocean, and we're mostly water. Um, and we find things all the time, entire cities, and we don't ask. We don't ask. We're like, oh, look what the ocean made. The ocean made a staircase in 100 homes. That's not how it works. But we refuse. We're told not to look. Don't look here. Look up at the sky. Everything that's going to come from there. Even Stephen Hawking, he's constantly on this fear mongering campaign about what's going to happen here. And it's like, we have to look at another story. There has to be another part, or other parts. You know, if you can believe there's a good, then you can believe that there's a bad.
And talking about humans too. Another thing I find interesting is take language for example. How is it that humans, if we all evolved from the same, primate subspecies, why is there thousands of different languages on Earth that some of them don't even look the same? The language that Asians use looks alien compared to what we use in the West, and then even Indians use a totally different language than everyone else. I mean, how did humans evolve over such a short time to look so different, have so many different languages, build some of these ancient structures that they can't even explain how we built today, like the pyramids, then suddenly just seem to sit around for 6,000 years and not really do anything? We don't even form a common language over 6,000 years that we could all speak to each other. Um, we haven't built any more, megalithic structures like the pyramids or at the Temple of Karnak or anything like that. We basically build stuff very cheaply nowadays compared to how it used to be built. How is that possible from a race of humans that supposedly all evolved from a single primate species? How would we have so many different languages, so many different skin color variations? Um, it doesn't make sense. And in fact, I plan on doing an upcoming video about evolution versus intelligent design. It's you know it's going to offend a lot of the people that think that maybe God created us all, but there's just when you look at the science and actual proof behind it, It's actually harder to prove that than being, you know, intelligently designed by a superior race and a race that made us all look different and speak different on purpose. And that's where you get the Tower of Babel incident. It's from Babel. You know, the word Babel means to talk on without making sense. You have the Tower of Babel incidents in Babylon. They knew what they were doing before they even, you know, so they knew for the next few thousand years that they can continually play humans against each other, because I believe that the reptilians' biggest fear would be 6.7 billion humans coming together and saying, "We've had enough of your crap," you know, and just tell the Illuminati, get off our planet. That would be their worst fear. Like any parasite or coward, they don't want to be exposed, and that probably is their biggest weakness. But as long as they can keep us divided, they can keep the wars going. I mean, when you have men going over in the Middle East to go fight a war, they can't even talk to the people that are over there because they all speak Arabic. You know, if everyone all spoke the same language, wars wouldn't work out the same way they want to. You know, people would probably just talk instead of shooting each other. I mean,
Right, right.
right.
And a lot of people don't see
It's a
that.
great way to
Thank you for
divide
bringing that up.
people. Yeah.
Right, right. Just tell them everything is, you know, we all eat. Our food has different names. That doesn't mean that we don't know how to eat. We do have very basic ways of communicating without the use of language. And it just so happens that those very basic things we could use in a visual sense. I don't have to go to a different country and explain eating and have to know your language. It's something that we all have to do, but that's not our divide. Our divide is things that they want to make it seem like it's giant and it's not. The similarities are heartbreaking considering if people would just not want to give all the doom porn a chance, and if you start realizing that a lot of the things that they try to use to make us seem different are actually very much the same. But we can't see each other on a human level. We have to see ourselves in. We're willing to call people aliens. It's like, what? How is that a thing? And why are we taking that so seriously? So we let them divide. We allow them to run rampant. They have so much control right now. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you think of it in a different way. It's everything leads to the same agenda. You know what I mean? So let me see. Okay, we got a couple of minutes left. I'm gonna let you bring up what you'd like to bring up.
Okay. Well, I basically like to thank everyone for listening. This was the first radio show I ever did. I promised Trinity that I would come on her show for the first time. I'm in the process of now. I put my YouTube channel up there for anyone that's interested. I'm releasing a series of lecture videos on my channel addressing different subjects about reptilians. For anyone listening, you can also leave a comment on my YouTube channel. I try to answer as many as I can. So if you have a question for me, you can leave it there. I might even make a video about it. I am in the process of writing a book, but that's a little difficult because it's the first book I wrote, and with editing and getting all my sources together and everything, it's just taking a little more time than I wanted, but it should be done hopefully this year. And I will be opening up a website soon, which will be my website, which will be dedicated to reptilians. That's ragingreptilian.com. The site's not up yet, but it should be within hopefully a few weeks. I have someone that's helping me with the coding for the site, and I'm doing all the design. And I plan for that website to be a reptilian kind of wiki page where you can go and get all kinds of information on the reptilian conspiracy in general. I'm going to feature research on there from everyone that researches reptilians, not just myself. So that would be another project that I have coming in the next couple of weeks. And as she said earlier, I'm always over at the forums at Disclose TV. I'm always writing threads about reptilians, and you could talk to me over there as well. Other than that, besides the videos I put out, there isn't too much I have in the works right now. But hopefully when I get this lecture series done, it's going to be an entire series of maybe 20 videos that maybe about 20 minutes long that it's going to explain different things about reptilians. I did 3 of them already. I did one on reptilian origins, one on how reptilians shapeshift, and where I got my name Kinningan from, and the Emerald Tablets of Thought. So I should have another video coming out within the next day or two on that playlist. So you can add my YouTube channel to watch my work. And like I said, if if any of you want to email me or ever have a question for me, my email is kininigan@gmail.com. You can always email me there, and I'll try to answer you back. And other than that, I think it's it. Give it back to Trinity, I guess.
All right. Well, thank you. As soon as your site is up, I will be sure to mention it here for those who are going to look forward to it the way that I am, and also your book. You can always come back as a guest if you have anything you want to kind of bring up, or we can do a second half. I would love to do the bloodline thing with you. I think that would be because you know about certain things that I'm not too aware of. Um, and of course, you can visit me, your host Trinity, at esoterictruthradio.com. Also, Truth Radio on Twitter, and Esoteric Truth Radio on Facebook and on YouTube. I also have a channel there myself where I take some of these shows and I put them up there. Just add like a little something at the end or in the beginning. Let's see. And like I said, you're more than welcome to come back at any point in time. Another shout out to Disclose. I know there's a lot of members over there listening right now that join us in the chat room and on the forums and stuff like that. It's really important that we kind of get this kind of information out there. If we don't talk about it, they're going to win. If we don't work as a team, they're going to win. If we let little things get us to not look any further, then they win. So it's not always about agreement. A lot of the time it's about us paying attention and listening and being open to others, their opinions and their research. Like I said, I wouldn't have looked into reptilians as hard as he did, but I'm glad that he did. And I'm glad that he came down here to show us and to give us that kind of information as well. Because now I know a little bit more than I knew 2 hours ago. So again, thank you so much, Kinningan. And I'm waiting for that song to just cut me off like it does every single week because I'm never on time with it. Thanks for being here at Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Don't forget, go to the archives and sign up. Get some of these shows and have them available for whenever you want to have a listen. And thank you, Noreen, of course, for being here for the last hour. That was really appreciative. And thank you to Karen K and to Planet, who actually said that this guest makes sense. So thank you for participating in the chat room. That means a lot. You guys have a fantastic week. Bye-bye.